headed for the Pride Lands, we came back as fast as we could. So, what happened?
Did you know Sarabi had a secret weapon against Scar's tyranny? It wasn't her claws or roar, but something much more powerful, her mind. How did she use it to resist Scar's cruel reign? What if her quiet resistance was the real reason the Pride Land survived? In this video, we'll explore Sarabi's hidden battle against Scar. We'll see how she protected the Pride's traditions, taught the cubs about Mufasa, and kept Simba's memory alive. Remember that scene where Sarabi stands up to Scar, defiant and strong? There's more to her story than meets the eye. What strategies did she use to keep hope alive? Let's find out together and uncover the secrets of Sarabi's inner strength. As the sun set on Mufasa's reign, a new era dawned in the Pride Lands. But it wasn't the golden age everyone hoped for. Scar's takeover cast a long shadow over the kingdom, and Sarabi found herself caught in the middle of a storm she never saw coming. The once vibrant savannah began to wither under Scar's neglectful rule, transforming into a barren wasteland. As the former queen, Sarabi couldn't help but notice the changes creeping across the land. The grass crackled underfoot and the herds were scarce, leaving an eerie silence in the air. Her heart ached as she witnessed the Pride Lands' decline. But what could she do when Scar held all the power? As time passed, Sarabi's mind began to wander down dark paths. What if the Pride Lands never recovered? What if the circle of life had been broken forever? These thoughts plagued her, gnawing at her spirit like hungry hyenas. She'd catch herself staring off into the distance, her eyes searching for hope, but finding only desolation. In her darkest hour, with despair clawing at her resolve, a long-remembered wisdom cut through the gloom. Sarabi recalled something Mufasa once told her when they were young. He had looked into her eyes and said, "Sarabi, true strength isn't about never falling down. It's about getting back up every time you do." Those words echoed in her mind now, a beacon of light in the gloom of Scar's reign. Inspired by Mufasa's wisdom, Sarabi made a decision. She wouldn't give up on the Pride Lands or her fellow lions, but how could she help when Scar's watchful eye was always upon them? That's when Sarabi started to get creative, thinking of ways to support the Pride without drawing Scar's attention. Sarabi's first act of rebellion was organizing secret hunting parties, teaching the younger lionesses techniques to catch prey in the barren landscape. These covert lessons not only kept the Pride fed, but also fostered unity and purpose among the lionesses. She also began whispering stories of Mufasa's reign to the cubs, born under Scar's rule, planting seeds of hope in the next generation. As Sarabi's secret resistance grew, so did her inner strength. She found herself standing taller, her gaze more determined. The lionesses looked to her for guidance, and she didn't let them down. Sarabi became a silent beacon of hope, a living reminder that Scar's reign wasn't the end of their story. But dark thoughts still haunted Sarabi. What if Simba was gone forever? What if Scar discovered her secret efforts? These worries followed her like shadows, always present even in her brightest moments. Yet Sarabi refused to let them consume her, channeling her worry into action. Sarabi's journey through Scar's reign wasn't just about survival, it was about preserving the heart and soul of the Pride Lands. With each small act of defiance, each whispered story of better days, she kept the flame of hope burning, and as she looked out over the changed landscape of her home, Sarabi knew that one day, somehow, the circle of life would turn again. The Pride Lands would heal, and the roar of a true king would once more echo across the savannah. As the Pride Lands withered under Scar's rule, Sarabi noticed something that worried her even more than the changing landscape. The younger cubs born after Mufasa's death had no memory of the great king who once ruled with wisdom and kindness. Sarabi knew she had to find a way to keep Mufasa's legacy alive without Scar knowing about it. One day while the Pride was out hunting, Sarabi discovered a hidden cave near the edge of Pride Rock. It was tucked away behind some rocks and overgrown with vines, making it the perfect spot for secret meetings. Sarabi came up with a clever plan. She would take small groups of cubs on hunting lessons and use that time to tell them about Mufasa. During these secret lessons, Sarabi would share stories about how Mufasa ruled with compassion and strength. She would tell them about the circle of life and how every creature in the Pride Lands played an important role. The cubs would listen with wide eyes as Sarabi described Mufasa's majestic roar and how he always put the needs of the Pride before his own. But it wasn't easy for Sarabi to keep these lessons going. Scar was always watching, and she had to be really sneaky about her teachings. Sometimes she would have to cancel a lesson at the last minute because Scar was getting suspicious. Other times, she would have to come up with quick excuses when a cub accidentally mentioned something they learned about Mufasa. There were moments when Sarabi felt like giving up. It was so hard to keep Mufasa's memory alive when everything around them was falling apart. But then she would look at the eager faces of the cubs, hungry for stories of a better time, and she knew she had to keep going. As time went on, Sarabi started to see the impact of her secret teachings. The cubs began to show qualities that reminded her of Mufasa. They were kinder to each other, more respectful of the other animals in the Pride Lands, and even started to question some of Scar's cruel decisions. It made Sarabi feel happy, even though things were still bad all around them. One day, while Sarabi was in the middle of telling a story about how Mufasa had settled a dispute between two herds, she heard a noise outside the cave. Her heart raced as she quickly hushed the cubs and peeked outside. It was just a monkey swinging by, but the close call made Sarabi realize how dangerous her mission really was. Despite the risks, Sarabi kept going. She knew that as long as the cubs remembered Mufasa, there was still hope for the Pride Lands to be good again someday. What if these cubs grew up to be the ones who would bring back Mufasa's way of ruling? It was a small hope, but it was enough to keep Sarabi going. As the months passed, Sarabi's secret lessons began to have an even bigger impact. The cubs started to pass on Mufasa's teachings to their friends who hadn't been part of the secret group. Soon, whispers of Mufasa's reign were spreading throughout the Pride, right under Scar's nose. It was like a secret rebellion, fought not with claws and teeth, but with stories and memories. Sarabi was always watching, always learning. She knew Scar thought he was so smart, but maybe he wasn't as clever as he believed. Sarabi noticed little things about how Scar ruled. He was always bragging about how great he was, but never really paid attention to what was happening in the Pride Lands. She realized she could use that to her advantage. She began to think of ways to help the Pride without Scar noticing. She could teach the other lionesses how to hunt better secretly. She started giving them little tips when they were out of earshot of the hyenas. "Try stalking from this angle," she'd whisper. "The grass is thicker here. It'll hide you better." The other lionesses caught on quickly, and soon they were bringing back more food than before, but Scar didn't notice. He was too busy lounging on his throne. The cubs were growing thin and weak because Scar always took the best parts of the kill for himself. Sarabi found a way to sneak them extra food. She started to hide little bits of meat in her mouth when she came back from hunts. Then, when no one was looking, she'd spit it out for the cubs to eat. It wasn't much, but it was enough to help them grow a little stronger. Sarabi knew she had to be careful. She watched the hyenas' patterns, noticing when they were most distracted. That's when she'd make her moves. She'd whisper quick lessons to the lionesses, or sneak food to the cubs. It was like a dangerous game of hide and seek, but the stakes were so much higher. Sometimes Sarabi felt scared, but then she'd look at the cubs, growing a little stronger each day, and she knew it was worth the risk. She felt proud of herself for being so clever. Every little victory against Scar's bad leadership felt like a triumph. Sarabi used more tricks to outsmart Scar. She noticed that Scar loved to hear himself talk, so she started to ask him questions about his brilliant plans for the Pride Lands. While he was busy bragging, she'd signal to the other lionesses to go hunt or check on the cubs. Scar never even noticed they were gone because he was too busy talking about himself. Sarabi also found ways to keep the Pride spirit alive without Scar knowing. She'd organize little games for the cubs, teaching them important skills while pretending it was just for fun. The hyenas thought they were just playing, but really, Sarabi was preparing the next generation to be strong and brave. She even used Scar's laziness against him. She suggested hunting in areas further away from Pride Rock. Scar, being so lazy, never bothered to check on them. This gave the lionesses more freedom to talk and plan without the hyenas always watching. But the most clever thing Sarabi did was right under Scar's nose. She started to give him little compliments, making him think she was on his side. "Oh, Scar, you're so wise," she'd say. And while he was busy preening, she'd be organizing the Pride behind his back. He thought he had her loyalty, but really, she was the one in control. All these little things added up to something big. Every day, Sarabi's clever tricks were keeping the Pride together. She was like a silent leader, guiding them through the darkest times without Scar even realizing it. And the Pride was growing stronger, more united, all because of her secret leadership. Scar was like a lion adrift in self-praise. Sarabi's heart raced as she watched the cubs playing near Pride Rock. Something was different about their games. The young lions were mimicking Scar's swagger and cruel laughter. Sarabi knew she had to do something, but how could she teach the cubs without Scar finding out? The former queen came up with a plan. She would use the hunting trips as a cover for secret leadership lessons. Sarabi began by telling stories about Mufasa during their breaks, making sure to keep her voice low and her eyes watchful. "Remember, little ones," she'd whisper, "a true leader protects all creatures in the Pride Lands, not just the ones they like." The cubs would listen with wide eyes, soaking up every word. As the days went by, Sarabi noticed changes in the young lions. They started asking questions about why things were different now. "Why don't we share our food with the other animals anymore?" one cub asked during a hunting lesson. Sarabi's mind raced, trying to find a safe way to answer. "Well," she said slowly, "sometimes leaders make different choices, but it's important to always think about what's best for everyone, not just ourselves." The cubs nodded, their little faces scrunched up in thought. Sarabi felt a spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she was making a difference. Sarabi had to find ways to make her lessons seem like normal play. She came up with games that taught important skills without raising suspicion. "Let's play Protect the Herd," she'd suggest, organizing the cubs into groups. Without realizing it, they were learning about teamwork and looking out for others. As the cubs grew, Sarabi saw more and more signs that her secret lessons were working. One day, she overheard a young lioness talking to her friends. "I don't think it's right that we chase away the other animals," she said. "Shouldn't we all share the Pride Lands?" Sarabi's heart swelled with pride, but also fear. What if Scar heard talk like this? The former queen knew she had to be even more careful now. She started teaching the cubs about subtlety and discretion. Sometimes, she'd explain in hushed tones, "The bravest thing a leader can do is to work quietly for change." The cubs would nod solemnly, their eyes full of understanding beyond their years. Sarabi's secret lessons weren't just about leadership. She also taught the cubs the practical skills that Scar had neglected. During hunting trips, she'd show them how to find water in unlikely places and which plants could be eaten in times of scarcity. "A good leader," she'd say, "makes sure their pride can survive even in the hardest times." As time went on, Sarabi's lessons became more daring. She started to teach the cubs about peaceful resistance and the power of unity. "If we all stand together," she'd say, her voice barely above a whisper, "we can weather any storm." The cubs would gather close, their eyes shining with determination. As the Pride Lands continued to wither under Scar's rule, Sarabi's secret school of leadership flourished. The cubs were growing into young lions with strong values and clever minds. They were learning to question things quietly, to help others in secret, and to never lose hope that things could change. But wait, what if Sarabi's hope wasn't just for the cubs she was teaching? What if she believed there was another lion out there who could change everything? Sarabi had a secret that she kept locked away in her heart, a hope so wild and precious that she barely dared to whisper it even to herself. She couldn't shake the feeling that Simba, her beloved son, was still alive somewhere out there in the vast unknown beyond the Pride Lands. As the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Sarabi started having vivid dreams about Simba. In these dreams, she saw him growing strong and brave, living in a lush jungle far away from the desolation of Scar's reign. One night, after a particularly vivid dream, Sarabi made a decision that would change everything. She decided to believe that Simba was alive and that one day he would find his way back home. But how could she help him? How could she guide him back to the Pride Lands without alerting Scar or the hyenas to her secret hope? That's when Sarabi came up with a daring plan. She would leave secret messages hidden throughout the Pride Lands. Messages that only Simba would understand. Sarabi began her secret mission with small, careful steps. She would arrange small piles of rocks in patterns that mimicked the stars Mufasa had once shown Simba. Near the watering hole, she would scratch marks into tree bark that looked like random claw marks to anyone else, but formed the shape of Simba's favorite childhood toy. But Sarabi had to be incredibly careful. She knew that if Scar or any of his hyena spies caught wind of what she was doing, it could mean disaster not just for her, but for the interpreted, so she became a master of misdirection, always having a plausible excuse ready if anyone questioned her actions. As time passed, Sarabi's imagination began to run wild with thoughts of where Simba might be and what he might be learning. She pictured him in distant lands, encountering new animals and discovering skills that could one day help him reclaim his rightful place as king. Sarabi's secret messages became more elaborate as time went on. She began incorporating elements of the stories she told the cubs about Mufasa's reign, knowing that these tales would resonate with Simba's memories. She would whisper these stories to the wind, hoping that somehow they would carry across the vast savannas and jungles to wherever Simba might be. Years went by with no sign of Simba, but Sarabi refused to give up hope. She continued leaving her secret messages, even when doubt crept into her heart. She knew that if Simba was out there somewhere, he would need all the help he could get to find his way back home. As the sun set on another day in the Withering Kingdom, Sarabi looked out over the savannah. To anyone else, it might have looked like a queen surveying her dying land, but in Sarabi's eyes, she was looking at a kingdom waiting to be reborn. And somewhere out there, beyond the horizon, she believed with all her heart that Simba was alive, growing stronger every day, and maybe, just maybe, following the invisible trail of breadcrumbs she had left to guide him home. As Sarabi gazed at the horizon, her heart swelled with hope, but she knew hope alone wasn't enough. She needed to take action right here in the Pride Lands. Sarabi's eyes narrowed as a daring thought crossed her mind. Could she find a way to rebel against Scar's tyranny without putting the Pride in danger? At first, it started small, so small that even Sarabi barely noticed it herself. She would stand a little taller when Scar prowled by, or look him directly in the eyes instead of lowering her gaze. These tiny acts of defiance made her feel stronger, like she was reclaiming a piece of herself that Scar had tried to crush. Her small defiance became the spark that ignited their quiet uprising. Sarabi began to wonder if she could inspire the other lionesses to join her in this quiet rebellion. She started by suggesting they hunt in groups, even when Scar demanded they go alone. At first, the others were hesitant, but Sarabi's quiet determination was contagious. As the days passed, Sarabi felt a change in the air. The other lionesses stood a little taller, walked with more purpose. They would share knowing glances when Scar wasn't looking, like they were all part of a secret team. But one day, Sarabi's heart nearly stopped as Scar's piercing gaze fell upon her just as she was about to lead the lionesses on an unauthorized hunt. His eyes narrowed suspiciously, and for a moment Sarabi thought he had discovered their secret, but then he turned away, distracted by a hyena's report. The close call made Sarabi realize the true danger of their actions, but it also strengthened her resolve. Sarabi's quiet rebellion grew bolder. She began to challenge Scar's decisions, not openly, but through clever maneuvering. When he demanded they hunt in dangerous areas, Sarabi would convince him it was his idea to try a safer location. When he wanted to banish a member of the Pride for a minor offense, Sarabi would find a way to make him think forgiveness was the stronger choice. Each small victory, each moment of defiance made Sarabi feel more alive. She realized that true strength wasn't about physical power or loud roars. It was about unwavering determination and the courage to stand up for what's right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Their rebellion was like a hidden ember waiting to burst into flame, slowly growing stronger with each passing day. The other lionesses started to look to Sarabi for guidance, not just in hunting, but in everything. They saw in her a quiet strength, a reminder of what true leadership looked like, and as they followed her lead, the spirit of the Pride began to change. Even as the land withered around them, their hearts grew stronger, more resilient. Sarabi knew that the future of the Pride Lands rested with the younger generation. She began to weave her acts of rebellion into their education, teaching them not just how to hunt, but how to think for themselves, how to question authority and stand up for what's right. Through games and stories, Sarabi planted seeds of resistance in the young minds. She taught them about the importance of unity, of caring for all creatures in the Pride Lands. And as she watched these cubs grow, she saw in them the hope for a better future. So what if Sarabi's quiet strength was actually the real reason the Pride Lands survived Scar's rule? While Simba was off living his Hakuna Matata life, Sarabi was back home keeping everything from falling apart. But what if she did more than just survive? What if she was secretly preparing the Pride for Simba's return all along, teaching cubs about Mufasa's way of ruling, organizing secret hunting parties, even leaving clues for Simba to find his way back home? Next time you watch The Lion King, imagine all the things Sarabi might have been doing behind the scenes. In her silent war, Sarabi forged the future of her kingdom. What quiet battles are you fighting that might change everything?